Our plane is approaching one of the most beautiful parts of India, a set of islands in the midst of the Bay of Bengal. The islands, called the Andaman Islands, are among the most picturesque in the world. A perfect picture of pristine beauty, beauty that has not been spoilt by the ravages of man, at least not yet. The Andamans are a cluster of 184 islands. The biggest and best known of these is Port Blair. They are home to the only live volcanoes in India that spew black smoke 24 hours a day. No, it was not because of these volcanoes that this serene place was once called by the scary name of Kala Pani, literally black water, which was even spoken in a tone that radiated terror. It was called Kala Pani because barely 100 years ago, the Andaman Islands were the scene of some of the worst cruelties inflicted by man on man. The story goes back to 1857, the year of the First War for Independence. The struggle for India's freedom that year so shook the British rulers that they started thinking of retaliatory repression on a scale that would effectively discourage any further repetition of 1857. One of the ideas that they came up with was to send the most difficult to deal with, read the most daring freedom fighters to the Andaman Islands, from where nobody could escape. Nobody could swim back alive to the mainland. The British started using the Andaman Islands as a prison soon after the freedom struggle of 1857. The first batch of 200 freedom fighters was brought there in 1858. Among the first jails constructed were those at Ross Island and Viper Island. The prisoners were kept on these islands for life and forced to engage in constructing more prisons, other buildings, and harbour facilities. These islands have rains round the year. It was in these marshy tracts that the freedom fighters, shackled and fettered, were made to walk and work in the midst of snakes and scorpions to clear the path for the construction of roads. It was in Viper Island that the freedom fighter Sher Ali was hanged for the assassination of Lord Mayo, the then Viceroy of India. As the years passed, the number of freedom fighters sent to the islands kept on increasing. This provoked the construction of the Cellular Jail at Port Blair, a prison of unprecedented proportions. The construction of the infamous Cellular Jail started in 1896 and was completed in 1906. The jail had 7 three-storied wings which radiated from a central area like the spokes of a wheel. The 7 wings had a total of 698 isolated cells, about 14 by 7 feet each, hence the name Cellular Jail. Each cell had a small ventilator, about 3 feet by 1 foot, at a height of 9 feet. There was a 4-foot wide corridor on one side of the cells. The cells were very securely locked, so secure that the inmate could not even touch the lock. Only one inmate was kept in a cell, and he could not communicate with any other inmate. Thus, all the inmates were in solitary confinement. The central area had a tower from where the guards could keep an eye on the inmates, a bell which could be rung to alert the other guards if any inmate tried to escape, and a stand to which an inmate could be strapped and flogged. Some of the famous freedom fighters imprisoned in the Cellular Jail were Veer Damodar Savarkar, Mahavir Singh, Diwan Singh Kalepani, Maulana Fazl-e-Haq Khairabadi, Yogesh Shukla, Batukeshwar Dutt, Maulana Ahmadullah, Maulvi Abdul Rahim Sadiqpuri, Baba Rao Savarkar, Bhai Parmanand, V.O. Chidambaram Pillai, Subramaniam Shiva, Sohan Singh, Vaman Rao Joshi, Nand Gopal, Baran Ghosh, Ullaskar Dutt, Upendra Banerjee, Hemchandra Das, Bijoy Kumar Sinha, Shiv Verma, Jaidev Kapoor, Gaya Prasad, and Kamal Nath Tiwari. The names of thousands of unsung heroes who perished here, however, remain unknown because the records were destroyed by the Japanese when they occupied the islands in 1942. The inmates of the jail were insulted and tortured. The food they got was unfit for human consumption. The bread had worms and wild grass served for vegetables. Drinking water was foul-smelling. Bad behavior invited punishment. And bad behavior was persisting with slogans such as Bharat Mata Ki Jai. And the punishment could be beatings and making the food worse, as if there was much scope for this. Yet the slogans went on, and many died due to beatings and starvation. The cells had no toilets and no light, and no reading material was provided. Interaction with other inmates was out of question. The inhuman treatment drove many freedom fighters to insanity and suicide, but none of them begged for mercy in return for a compromise. The inmates were forced into hard labor, such as peeling of coconuts with their bare hands, going round and round like bullocks to extract oil from oil seeds. The oil grinding mills killed as many as the hangman's noose. The targets were unrealistic. A man was expected to extract more oil in a day than a bullock, and failing to meet the targets invited punishment. Thus, each day was Punishment Day. And yet, with each whiplash, the cry that issued from the brave sons of Mother India was Bharat Mata Ki Jai. The inhuman treatment meted out to the prisoners led to a mass hunger strike on the 12th of May 1933. The prisoners resolved to fast unto death unless their demands for better treatment were met. One of the methods tried to break the strike was to force-feed the strikers, but the freedom fighters were made of sterner stuff. They resisted force-feeding, and in the ensuing struggle, many of them died because of liquid food entering their lungs. One of those who died due to force-feeding was Mahavir Singh. His body was thrown into the sea. Then, an effort was made to break the hunger strike by stopping the supply of drinking water, but the strikers were resolute. The hunger strike made the rest of the country conscious of what some of their brothers were going through in Kalapani. They responded in solidarity with protests throughout the country. The British government had to bow down, and the hunger strike, which had been going on for 46 days, ended on the 26th of June 1933. The second mass hunger strike by the freedom fighters, held in the Cellular Jail, started on the 25th of July 1937. This strike was to ask for returning to the mainland. Their countrymen in the mainland responded in a way that reassured those languishing in the Andamans that they might be out of sight but were not out of mind. In support of their demand, the freedom fighters in jails throughout the country went on a hunger strike. The intervention of Mahatma Gandhi, other senior Congress leaders, and Rabindranath Tagore finally brought an end to the hunger strike after 36 days, and the process of sending the freedom fighters back from the Andamans to the mainland started in September 1937. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose visited the Andamans in 1943 and set the ball of India's freedom rolling by unfurling the tricolour hardly 200 meters away from the Cellular Jail on the 30th of December 1943. However, the British reoccupied the Andaman Islands again in 1945. Today, a visit to the Cellular Jail is a pilgrimage. The jail is a reminder of the price paid by so many sons of the soil for the sake of the freedom that we enjoy today. So, while you enjoy the breathtaking beauty of the Andaman Islands, take a walk through the limestone caves there, or look at the coral reefs at the bottom of the ocean. Don't forget those who died here so that we could breathe the air of freedom.
मेरे वतन के लोगों, जरा आँख में भर लो पानी, जो शहीद हुए हैं उनकी जरा याद करो कुर्बानी। ऐ मेरे वतन के लोगों, जरा आँख में भर लो पानी, जो शहीद हुए हैं उनकी जरा याद करो कुर्बानी।